And then now I will pass it off to Professor Carmel.
Thanks, Ben. Thank you very much. And again, thank you to all of you for joining us this evening. We were just talking with the panelists about how great it is that we have such an amazing network of alumni at the college who are willing to come back and speak to current students, give them some thoughts, some ideas, some perspective on what they've been doing. And we really are lucky that we have such a great group of alumni who've come this evening to join us and all doing amazing different things and who can give us a lot of perspective, I think, on life after the college. So without further ado, I'm going to just ask you guys, can you go ahead and introduce yourself? Maybe I'll hand it off first of all to Leslie. Would you be willing to just sort of quickly, your name, your class year, and your major, maybe, but that would
Yeah,
be
hi everyone. I graduated in 2006, my goodness, which means I think our 20th reunion is coming up this summer. Um, I majored in visual arts. My thesis and kind of concentration in that world ended up being oil painting with a focus on life drawing, which really came from my interest in knowing that I was going to go to architecture school. And so much about what I do when it comes to design and architecture is about proportion and scale and the mathematics behind that. And that's like life drawing 101. So that's certainly where that came from. My minor was in architectural studies, which I created on my own at that point. I believe there might be something more official now, but back in that day, you kind of had to create it. I did that because I spent my junior year in Italy abroad, and took advantage of all the history, and architectural history and art classes from that perspective. And then I worked at an architecture firm in Chicago. Then I returned to school and I got my master's at Cornell University. Um, worked, a lot of different backgrounds. If anyone's interested in what firms I worked for and why, happy to talk about that. And then 6 years ago, I started my own architecture firm, and we call ourselves Bristow Mather Architects. My full name is Bristow Mather Architect, or my full name is Leslie Bristow Mather, so that's where that comes from. Apologies, you might hear a little baby in the background where he's being evacuated. So we're 6 years in business, which is kind of a turning point, I think, for any kind of company. If you've made it past 5 years, is what I've been always told. So we're making a big push this coming year. So I can talk about what it means to design and get buildings and houses built. But I can also talk about the joys and the pain of being an entrepreneur and running a company that has to make money. Because you can make the prettiest pictures in the world, but if you don't know how to get things built and you can't get clients, um, I'm interested in getting things built. So happy to be here, happy to talk about any of that.
Thank you. That's amazing. And
Yeah.
just what you're saying about like the, multiple skills that one needs as a practitioner, right? To have like be able to juggle all these and including the baby,
Yes,
on
and
top of
not
all
all of
these
them are
things.
taught at school, which I
And not
know
all of them are taught
I
in
can't
school.
imagine all these students are getting taught those things. So I'm very passionate about talking about the things you aren't taught in school. So
That's amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much. So,
thank you.
Ben, could you maybe talk a little bit, like, introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. My name's Ben Castle. I graduated 2024, and I majored in economics and architectural studies, and I currently go to UCLA. While I was at Holy Cross, I interned at a modular construction company, which was really cool. And then I also just this past summer, and still currently am working for a healthcare master planning firm. Um, I'm kind of a special case. I jumped ship and moved across the country for school. So I also went directly after undergrad. So you guys have any questions about that? I'd be happy to answer anything you got.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Hunter.
Hi, I'm Hunter Goot. I graduated in 2023. I mean, 2023. I majored in architectural studies while I was at Holy Cross. And I went and matriculated to University of Pennsylvania for my master's of architecture immediately upon graduation. That's where I am right now. I'm in studio. So I am in my final year, so looking at postgrad options, so that's pretty interesting, but that's kind of been my journey so far. And since I'm in studio, I'll leave the surprise for you guys. If you go architecture route, you're gonna be in studio for a little bit. So pleasure to be here.
Thank you. That's fantastic. And Chris,
Hi, yeah, I'm Chris Barone. I graduated 2024 with Ben. I am a second year master's urban planning and policy student at Northeastern. I also went right out of undergrad, so I can kind of talk to that with urban planning as opposed to architecture, and also just staying in Boston in general. And then I've been a co-op at the Mass Department of Transportation, in the Office of Transportation Planning for the last 5 months, and I focus in like geospatial technology and like planning data currently. So I can also talk to some of the GIS work that I do. Yeah, thank you.
fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, I guess just to sort of kick it off, we were going to ask some questions about your current work. And I was going to just, give you some prompts here and you can do what you will with them. But so some of the questions that came to mind, um, just describe what you do currently. And, some of you've already kind of gestured towards this, but your career path after graduating from Holy Cross, maybe what your day-to-day experience is like, what techniques you use, right? In terms of thinking about like what actually is going on in terms, this is changing, right? So people hand draw, I suppose, maybe still, right? Maybe still use paint, computer rendering, model building, 3D computer modeling, like what kinds of, sort of how you make things, how you execute your work. And then maybe another idea might be a recent project that you've done that you're proud of that you'd like to share. So, you know, any of those are a free game if you would like to kind of start with that. I don't know, Leslie, can I just start with you?
Audio. Yeah. I think maybe I'll take it from like how do I create things because it's definitely a different answer in school. I'll let all these students to speak to that, but at least one thing I learned from school, depending on semester and semester, studio and studio, is you're learning different techniques and you're learning different approaches. And those professors, they have their focus and like their specialty. And for me, you're a sponge and you're learning all these different tools, but then ultimately when you go work for someone, you're using the tool that they prefer or tool sets. And then when I went on my own, of course, it's double-edged sword. I get to choose what tools to use in order to create, communicate. Um, Practically speaking, we use Revit to create all our construction drawings. Um, and it's been an interesting evolution. At the firms I worked with before, we were heavily using SketchUp in like a very, very detailed way before other people were using it really detailed way. But then we would do what is very laborious is essentially take what we had modeled in 3D in SketchUp. So we're communicating with clients, we're communicating with contractors. Our 3D language was in SketchUp, but then we would have to take the time in AutoCAD to transfer that information into 2D construction drawings. And for those of you who are familiar with Revit, some genius along the way. I'm certainly not like a computer. That's not like computer programs aren't my passion. My partner actually is like, if he was here, he could speak more to this. But Revit essentially does that at the same time. So while I'm drafting in 2D, it's modeling. That's a very simple way of putting it because it's a very complex program and you can make Revit as complicated or as simple as you want to do it. We pride ourselves on really, like, we really model very detailed to the point where when we do show it in 3D, we aren't loose about it. The clients know what we want to do. We use design options, all that to say, the reason I'm talking about this so much is I like to draw by hand. I painted at Holy Cross. And I found SketchUp a great way for me to design in a loose, kind of fast, scrappy way. And when my partner, Ethan, my business partner at Bristol Mather, pushed me to just completely let SketchUp go and go all the way into Revit, what I was worried about, and I do think it is a danger, but for those of you who've read the book and getting very academic, what medium is the message, message is the medium. You are only dangerous. Tools are only dangerous if you don't know them. So we know Revit in and out in that sense that I know what my handicaps could be. I know the dangers of being too handicapped to Revit. And one of my biggest worries was not being able to be loose, was not to be able to do design options, was not, I was very worried about when you start a project, you start kind of at a really big scale. And you're thinking about scale and really large proportions, and you're making really large gestures. And then you're slowly getting in the details, but then you're going in and out and in and out. And we're constantly getting loose, and then we're getting hyper detailed. And then we're changing and we're getting loose. And it's kind of like this zipper that, at least for us, because we're flexible and we like to experiment, we're kind of going in and out. And Revit is designed to be very precise. And it came from a world of really wanting to do repetitive kind of floor plans for like a skyscraper. In the world of, and someone feel free to cut me off, I could talk about this forever. In the world of custom residential, which I don't think I mentioned, we don't repeat anything. We may have a few common details that we like to come back to, but we are doing custom details for every single project. So there is no templates. We aren't reusing floor plans. We aren't stacking floor plates on top of each other, which is where Revit really starts to like be powerful. Because if you change a bathroom layout on floor 92, well, guess what? You don't have to change them on all floors. You change it on there and it goes through. That's amazing. We don't get to take advantage of that when you do custom residential because we're not repeating anything like that. But there are certain things that get repeated, like, oh my God, I want to change the height of all the wall outlets. Back in the day, I'd have to go through CAD and do every single drawing. Okay, so we use Revit both for construction drawings and to communicate with our client. But I also use sketches, and then I use Photoshop, and I'll collage photos and images from the internet and materials over renderings to give it more of a hand kind of touch, but also to communicate a casualness to what we do. The other danger of Revit is when you pump a floor plan out or a drawing, it looks fixed. And something I've learned over the years is a lot of clients get nervous. You show them a black and white drawing and they're like, oh, well, Leslie already designed this. How it's a psychological thing that happens. Is there any even room for me to give input? And so I have learned over the years certain ways that I try to make drawings feel a little bit more casual. And we do that in all sorts of ways. We use different colors, we play with line weights, all these things. But it's been amazing. There's a lot of psychological work that we do that goes into why we communicate to one party, let's say the client, versus another party, the contractor, versus the guy who's building the cabinets. We also do custom furniture. So the guy who's going to be building this sofa, he may be this amazing craftsman, but he's not super technical. So I might just like go sketch on a piece of paper with him in his workshop. And we look at some photos and he's like, I got it, Leslie, get out of here. So it's very much know your audience and know what tool makes sense with that audience. Now, that is one of the hardest things. That does not come quickly. As like I said, my reunion's coming up this summer, 20 years since college. There is a large learning curve in architecture. There's a reason why you don't see a lot of people having successful firms at like age 25, because there's a lot to learn. There are a lot of mistakes to make. But that's a cool thing. It's cool. I don't know. I really love it. It sounds like I'm complaining about 20 years. I'm really not. It feels like it was yesterday. And the fun thing is I'm like kind of young. I'm kind of like the new kid on the block when I do introduce myself to clients or contractors. Which
It's all
is
relative. It's all
it's all
relative.
relative.
There
I'm
you go.
young in architecture, but I'm
In
old to
architecture, you're
being a
always going to be.
mom.
That's good.
Yeah, it's
That's
all
good. Leslie, could you just one more thing about like so could you tell us a little bit about a recent project that you've been working on?
I can. Oh my goodness. Why don't we talk about I'll just talk about it and then if you guys want to look at our website or our Instagram, we are doing a renovation and addition to a historical cottage in Southwest Michigan. So also side note, something that makes us a little different. I'm based in Atlanta. My partner is in Brooklyn. I started Bristol Mather in Chicago. We do projects all across the country. Right now we have a project in Brooklyn, two in Michigan, one in Atlanta. Um, one of our projects in Michigan is a really interesting project. It's going to be complete by this spring. And what I'm excited about is it really demonstrates like our skill set in many different ways. So it's a beautiful renovation of this historical cottage, but then we are adding on, gosh, like a 200 square foot pristine steel and glass black box that's going to be this little mud room. And it's very much for art's sake. Does this mudroom need to be glass and steel? No. Did the client just love that aesthetic and it makes her feel good? Yes, which is where that art comes in. But then the architecture comes back in because this thing has to be engineered. It's incredibly precise and it's attached to this very kind of kooky, imprecise existing structure. So I love projects when we get to play with that juxtaposition. And like, it also kind of screams architecture, which is fun. What architect doesn't love like a glass box attached to something? Like we get that whole thing. But from a business standpoint, up until now, we've had a lot of renovations, which are wonderful and I love them. But showing to future clients and the world that we can do new construction, we can do very precise detailing, and we can execute on that level is great. But it's kind of, it's a small scale, but you can see if you extrapolate out, it's like, okay, these guys can do a new construction home,
Amazing.
so I think it'll be good for business. It's also great, just it's a beautiful project. So it's
Sounds
fun.
great.
It's going to show kind of our different levels of skill sets and different abilities to work with different architectural languages.
And maybe after this, we can send out like your site to for the firm so
Perfect.
people can
Yeah.
take a look. That would be great. I'm gonna turn to Ben. Maybe you could ask you just to like rehearse some of these points for you, like the career trajectory, your day-to-day sort of experience, what techniques or methods you've been using recently, and any recent project, if
Yeah,
any
of
of those.
course.
Yeah.
So what did I do after Holy Cross? I hopped on a plane and flew out to California. So I went straight after school to come here to school. I spent summer back home, but that was about it. Kind of took that summer off just to kind of get acquainted with the new life I'd be leading, I guess. My day to day is kind of boring, if I'm being honest. I wake up and all of my classes don't really start till earliest class is like 11:30 here. So I spend the morning working. I might go for a run or something if I have time, and then I go to class. Only one class a day right now because we're on a quarter system, so we have 3 quarters of classes, and then as opposed to 2 semesters. So classes have been pretty light this year, but go to a class, finish class, come home, do more work, try to eat if I have time, then go to bed and do the same thing the next day.
Which
Uh,
class is it that you're taking right now?
we're taking an architectural practice course, so that's code, law, contracts, all that stuff. Then we are doing an architectural programming course, which I know is required for accreditation, but it's more of a theory course going into public space and placemaking in urban environments. So right now we're really focusing on like the Palisades and Altadena fires and how that impacted those communities. And then we're doing a building and landscape studio as well. And that's like the big studio course that everyone in architecture school, you have one studio a semester, a quarter, and that takes up all your time. And then you just kind of struggle to get everything else in. So yeah. Um, but last year we had this course called Mediations, which was our technology course. So that's where we learned how to render, how to draw, how to use Blender, AR, like image mapping, soundscaping, like using AI to blend images to speculate what a site plan could be or what forms different programs could take on. So like Holy Cross or not Holy Cross, UCLA has been a very big like technology school. Something I realized like we don't hand draw, we don't paint, we don't really do much of that. Like all of most of my 3D modeling I make out of I use the 3D printer for that. If I don't want to use plastic, then I'll print a mold for plaster. Like it's very technologically focused here, but I kind of like that. Um, yeah, and then I guess a recent project that I really enjoyed was last quarter was we did a housing project, so medium-sized apartment building, 12 units. And it was just really cool because it was I like finally understood how to use the softwares, how to use the programs. And I just it ended up being a really interesting project that I was really proud about. So yeah.
Fantastic. So great. Thank you. Um, Hunter, could I ask you the same sort of set of questions?
Yeah, so I'll touch on the tools first. I've had two internships each summer I've been here so far. One in Providence, Rhode Island on kind of K through 12 education. And then the one that I just had was in science and technology. So I worked on a nanotech lab over the summer. Um, but the tools between school and practice differ, I'd say. At in school, I usually use Rhino, which is a 3D modeling software, almost the entire time. And then in practice, I've used SketchUp, AutoCAD, and Revit. Revit's probably pretty predominant throughout most firm practices, I'd say right now. Um, but similarly to Ben, I 3D print a lot. I've found actually in my time here, I've tried to do more work with my hands. So I'd say, yes, there's a lot of digital tools to use, but if you can sketch ahead of time, before you get into kind of the digital realm there, I think that is one of the useful tools that I gained from Holy Cross is sketching. You know, whether you take one of the charcoal studios or whatever it may be, working with your hands a little bit before getting into the digital tools is always helpful, in my experience. Um, so I guess that would be what I had to say about tools I use every day. My day to day is, I mean, I guess today, like wake up at 7 a.m., do some work, class from noon to 3, which is real estate and development, using some AI to kind of speculate, and also recently using AI to create 3D models and then print 2D floor plans off of that. So that is a little bit of real estate and development. And then lunch break from 3 p.m. to 3:30. And then I'm currently working on a project, which this ties into the other question pretty well, where I'm on a team with three of my classmates, and we're helping fabricate a 10 by 6 foot concrete panel with a precast company in New Jersey that we are pouring in November. So we have to produce the CDs for that, and we use Rhino construction documents, and we use Rhino and Bluebeam to kind of communicate with our project managers for that. So that was from 3:30 to 6:30, and now I'm in studio. Well, 3:30 to 6, and now I'm in studio. And I have, studio course to do, which is I just came back from Seoul, South Korea last week for studio travel, and our project this semester is a tower in Seoul, South Korea. So, yeah, it's busy days. And I guess, as to my current trajectory, I'm in my final year, so getting one more studio project under my belt for my portfolio, and then applying, getting all my materials together, which would be a portfolio, resume, sample sample work with some firms like that as well, um, cover letter, all that. So the trajectory of that is I work on all that over winter break and start applying to firms, and then do my final semester. So a lot going on, busy days. If you do the architecture track for masters, I'd say coming out across digital is going to be your biggest kind of uphill battle, but once you get out of the first year, it's not too bad. And after that, if you can work in some hand sketching or mold something with your hands, that's always a great way to get a little more, you understand the geometry better of the project after that. And that's what I have to say from coming from Holy Cross. If you take the studios, that's probably your biggest advantage is having the knowledge of how to work with hands and how to conceptualize from that point.
I really appreciate that. We also have just now Leslie Scomp is in studio. She's just offering a new course called Drawing Architectural Form, I think it's called. So that's like, I don't know if that was, I think that's new since you guys were here. So that's, the idea that now we have a course that is really about drawing buildings for the architects. I mean, this is a great thing. And so I appreciate your pointing out, and hopefully we'll hear more about from all of you what you think you got out of Holy Cross that has been helpful to build on. So thank you, Hunter. So, and Chris.
Yeah, so I'll just kind of go through my day. I think it's probably a bit different considering I work full time in an office that does planning. So I wake up and I go to work from I usually work 8 to 4. You can kind of the office you can kind of pick if you want to work 7 to 3, you can. If you want to work 9 to 5, you can. I tend to slot around 8 to 4, so wake up and I work from home 3 times a week, and so I think my job is it's kind of the first step in planning a lot of the time. Planning is based off of a lot of information, and we help process and analyze and present that information so that the project managers and the design teams and eventually the engineers, once those designs and projects get approved, can eventually use everything in a cohesive and understandable way in order to actually get projects off the ground. But what I do currently, and it's not necessarily where I think I'll end up long term because my degree is much more based towards planning and design rather than this sort of back end geospatial technology. But what I do is essentially how we secure funding for every project. And if it wasn't for the data that we create, then the funding that these projects receive from the federal government, from the state government, wouldn't exist because it all has to be backed up by concrete data. So that's essentially what I do. My classes and my studies have been basically all geared towards transportation planning, transportation policy, and transportation design. I've done a lot of studies. One that I'm particularly happy with how it turned out was just a overall construction and current status analysis on the MBTA and the MTA's rapid transit systems and why we deal with shutdowns so frequently. Essentially, just understanding why the infrastructure is always in a state of constant needing repair. And everything tends to boil down to funding and money and planning, but that's kind of also the fun challenge of it because that allows you to innovate and come up with really cool solutions to how you can sort of try to figure out what the best way to maximize the funding that you do have and everything that you can do. So Northeastern's program specifically because it has that planning and policy tied together. We do a lot of sort of funding and public policy with the planning. So everything's tied together. Everything's very grounded in the program that I'm a part of. There are certainly a lot more programs that focus more specifically on urban design without the policy aspect. But I think when I was going about choosing my program, I wanted to find the type of degree that I could apply in the field that I want to the easiest. So I go to class at night. It's just the nice thing about Northeastern. I think that's pretty standard across the board. My classes start at 5 and they end at 8:30, so it's usually a pretty long day. I take 2 classes right now. I'm going to go back. Standard course load is 3 a semester, so then I'll go back to 3 with my capstone in the fall, in the spring, and then I have one summer course because I'm one course deficient because I only took 2 this semester because I wanted to see how full-time work and school would go. But it's been pretty seamless so far, so I'll just take that last class in the summer one semester, and then I'll be done. And then hopefully continue to work in the Mass Dot or in the public sphere, at least for a bit.
And what are the courses you're taking this semester?
So I am in planning law, which is pretty much just what it sounds like, understanding the sort of laws and regulations that sort of bind planners and what they can and can't do within an urban space. Really interesting because it's kind of everything in my courses sort of danced around the topic, and then now we're just kind of diving into, okay, like why can't we just take land and do exactly what we want? Well, there's a bunch of legal precedents saying that we can and can't do these certain things. So that's a lot of what I've been learning this semester. And then my other class is just a theory class, lot of just urban theory and a lot of stuff that I actually did in undergrad. So, because I was an urban studies major, so I would say this class is pretty akin to a lot of things I've done undergrad.
Interesting. Interesting. Wow. Okay. Super. Thank you very much. This is really, really informative, very enlightening, all this kind of insights from all of you from across these different, different areas and different ways of thinking. Um, the next sort of group of questions we had was related to actually going to graduate school, right? Or sort of how you even prepare to go to a professional program. Coming out of a liberal arts college, we're not necessarily training people in a very specialized way, but so that's a kind of you sort of have to negotiate that transition, and you've all figured out a way to do it. But so we were trying to get, maybe some insights from you about how you did it and what your thoughts are, if you have any recommendations or advice. So, three basic questions here for you to consider. One, like, why did you choose the program that you chose? That would be kind of a place to start. Maybe any recommendations you might have to our students, right? Who graduating students who are think or people who are thinking about going on in a design program or in a planning program. What what they should consider in terms of how they prepare to apply, like, and this, especially given my background is in architecture, sort of thinking always about the importance of the portfolio, right? Like, how do you prepare your portfolio? What did you do, like, anything special, advice, tips you might have about preparing for applying to a program. And then finally, this question about the liberal arts education that you got at Holy Cross and how you see it connecting, hopefully, to some of the work that you're doing in your programs, if you see connections between what you did at the college and what you're doing in your graduate work, and afterwards as well. So, I don't know, Leslie, can we start with you again?
Oh, big questions that I could talk about for years. Okay, Holy Cross. So it's interesting. I've been exposed after going to Cornell. I found myself alongside a majority of students who went to 5 year or 4 year architecture undergraduate schools. Incredible, talented students, a lot of them with more technical backgrounds, and then had all these internships in all these architecture firms. And I often get asked, why do I think I got accepted to Cornell alongside most of my class was like that, and here I show up. Um, and I think it was my portfolio and then my in-person interview. I think it's natural, but I'm also aware of it, and it's also why I ended up at Holy Cross to begin with, is that I'm very, very curious. Yes, I love architecture. Like, that's table stakes. Yes, I love design, table stakes. But like, I like learning about the world, and I love learning about my clients, and they all come from different backgrounds. And at Holy Cross, I got to do and learn and take so many classes, including, like, I got to go live in Italy for a year. And and to me, yes, like, architecture is underlying, but architecture doesn't define my life. I happen to love it, and I love what I do every single day, and I'm so blessed, but it's not, it doesn't define who I am. I'm interested in a lot of things, and there's a lot of things that I'm interested in that then inform how I approach architecture, how I work with clients, and how I talk to people. And I think that's what came across, and why I got into Cornell. The other thing, more technical and like traditional, is I was obsessed with life drawing, and I could talk about this forever, but um, I don't think people, it's so basic to say, but if you sit in a room, like, I can't help but look at Hunter's background, and it's like, why do things feel good? And why does, when you sketch the human body and you're looking at the person in front of you and you're like, something's off? That is a technical thing, and it's that blend of science and artistic sense of scale and proportion, that if you have to learn it, it's a skill, but it's also something you can't teach at a certain point, because if you can't get it, you can't get it. And if you don't understand the rhythm of the ceiling behind Hunter, and like why things are aligning and where the center point is and why this proportion on the header above the window also matches the divide. Like it's all about proportion and scale, and there's no rules though. It doesn't have to be what's behind Hunter, but there is a rhythm that architects and designers come to. And so my paintings and my drawings was just all about scale and measuring and math. And like, again, it's not that that means that there is no one, God knows, no one in school is going to tell you how to design exactly because there is no, and that's scary for a lot of people. But if you can figure out what scale, like I boil it down to like, to me, design is like scale, proportion, and like everything kind of coming together. And there's an art in that, and that is different for everyone. But if you can figure out what yours is and you're able to express that, whether it's in a painting or in a building or in a little kitchen, like that's what I do every day. And I think that's what I was able to convey. And to sum it all up, I think that's what I got to play with at Holy Cross. And that's how I convinced someone out of Holy Cross to hire me, even though I didn't know how to use a computer, at an architecture firm. I'm also okay making mistakes. I like getting messy. Like, our work, once you take a photo, what I hate about our profession is that you see these beautiful photos and you're like, oh my God, look at how clean and precise it is. The reality is, guys, like my office is a mess. I work like very messy. I'm sketching, like things are like it's a shit show. But
That's
our drawing,
the most creative minds, right? You need a mess to have like
I like to
creativity.
tell myself that, David. I like to tell myself that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
could be a little bit more organized. But I will say, like, that's my I make mistakes, I experiment. Our drawings are like incredibly precise. Like when you see all this chaos and you look at our construction set, we really pride ourselves on like, so it's that left brain, it's the right brain. Um, and I think holy like when you go to Holy Cross and it's liberal arts, it is like kind of nebulous. You're carving your own path. You aren't like an engineering major and it's all laid out to you. And I have found when interviewing with employers, they really respect and understand and appreciate that ability to be self-led and to really have to figure it out, for lack of a better word, on your own. But the reality is, I have found the architecture and design community um so open. Like if I just want to ask people questions, even at my age, you guys, the amount of emails I send like established architects and I just ask them like for advice is insane. And my hit rate of getting responses is really high from like very famous architects. So I think Holy Cross in a great way forces you to be like, how am I going to do this? Like no one's really like, there's not a precise path through a liberal arts education because for lack of a better word, you have to figure it out on your own. Like, how is this gonna be my foundation? Um, and if you're going into architecture or urban planning, it's not like other professions. You do have to figure it out. But the great thing is if you're into it and you love it, you're going to be surrounded by other people who've also had to figure it out. And I think there's a real camaraderie. I don't know if I answered the
No,
question, but
that's
I
great.
think
That's great. And
that's,
also part of the like studio, right? That's the studio experience, kind of
oh,
camaraderie. I mean, all of you, I think, have had some of that, right? Like kind of this, all of it in it together.
you're in it together, and it is like, we didn't have frats and sororities in Holy Cross, but my God, when you get to architecture school, like you'll get, you're a little frat for better or worse.
That's great.
And yeah. Oh
That's
God, I
great.
could talk
Thank you.
forever.
Thank
Yeah.
you. No, we should kind of make sure we have enough time because I realize I'm never very good because I could kind of keep listening forever. So this is the problem. So anyway, Ben, can you talk a little bit about so just like some of these things, like why
Yeah, of
you chose
course.
your program, that kind of thing, whatever. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely want to say like something I really want to emphasize that Leslie just mentioned is like this whole idea of like self-leading. I'd say 50 to 75% of my time is actually taking the time to like research how to do stuff in Rhino, how to use Grasshopper, how to use these different programs, like finding precedents for the projects that I'm working on. You spend a lot of time like self-leading, and that does lead to like an excellent studio culture, where everyone is chatting with each other and asking questions and trying to help each other. and trauma bonding with each other because, oh my gosh, architecture school is very stressful, but in a great way. But yeah, back to the questions. So I chose my program here in California because of the weather. I was deciding in the middle of the winter, and I think that I ultimately ended up playing like a pretty big role in that. No, I'm just kidding. It was the faculty in the city. I grew up on the East Coast and had a little bit of time in Tennessee, but I was used to the very dense urban fabrics of New York and Boston, and I'd never experienced anything like Los Angeles. And when I came out here to visit, I really started to understand that this is like a big city, but it's really like tens of like mini cities, like pockets around this whole massive urban fabric. You drive 5 minutes in that direction, you feel like you're in Beverly Hills. It's the nicest place on earth. And then you can go like 10 minutes this way and you're in the mountains, and 5 minutes that way and you're on the beach. So it creates a really interesting landscape for architecture as well as like urban design. Um, and the other thing, which I think that is a result of, is it's just a palimpsest of different perspectives, cultures, people coming from different places on Earth. Like the diversity here is incredibly amazing. And that is one of the biggest reasons why I came out here, is because I wanted to learn as many different perspectives, as many different cultures as I could, because all of this is stuff that can inform your design, your approach to situations with clients, with contractors. They approach how you move through life. And I think that's a big thing that I took from Holy Cross is being a liberal arts school, you're not just going down one path. You might have like a general focus, but every every semester you're taking electives and going down this path and trying out something new and investigating this. And I wanted to continue that. And I was like, I could stay on the East Coast and go down the path that's comfortable, or I could jump ship and completely change my environment and see how it works out. And it's been pretty good. I think when it comes to applying for graduate school, the portfolio is extremely important. I think you want to be concise, but also very precise with what you are choosing to show and what you are trying to tell with what you are showing. I also think it's really important to have a language to that portfolio that is very cohesive and kind of gives the admissions committee the ability to kind of get to see into like who you are and how you approach problems, as well as like um, how you like artistically challenge those problems and come up with solutions. I think you should think about your portfolio as an architectural project in itself. So really do that. And then also when you're researching schools, research the faculty. That's the most important thing to research: faculty and the courses that they offer and what they specialize in. Because at the end of the day, like where you go is like great, but the majority of my connections are going to be with faculty, and they're all representative of the work that I want to do and I want to learn about. So it's very, very important. And then I'd say for the liberal arts background, I kind of touched on a little bit, but just being open to every little nook and cranny that you see when you walk down a sidewalk, and searching for information in the craziest of places. Like last year we modeled like one of our projects, we were using Blender, which is a 3D animation software. And it was for form making, and I like took a pillow and dropped an object on it and then like had everything warp around, and it was just, and then we like took sections and screenshots of those like very specific time frames, and then investigated like those collisions and then like used that to create form. So it's like like don't put on blinders. Like don't, what are those things that horses wear that keep them
Yeah,
going straight?
blinders. Yeah.
Yeah, like don't have tunnel vision. Go explore. Like I think that's one of the things that Holy Cross taught me, was that is like the confidence is knowing like you're gonna be fine, you're gonna be okay, like no matter what you do. And like or Holy Cross gave me the confidence to know that like, okay, like I move across the country And I start architecture school with very little experience, and try to meet all these new people. Like, no matter what, it's going to be okay. Like, I already have the undergrad degree and plethora of alumni and students that I already know. So I'd say take the risks, jump, like, you'll be fine. And yeah.
That's great. Super fun. You guys are very eloquent. I really appreciate this. Hunter, can you talk a little bit about, I don't know, like why you chose your school, any recommendations for people who are, as they apply, and maybe the connections between the liberal arts program and your program that you're in now?
Yeah, so kind of opposite of Ben, I grew up in northern Michigan, which has pretty cold winters. So winters don't affect me too much, and Philly's pretty south for me, so I'm doing pretty good. Um, but yeah, I chose Penn. I mean, I got in full disclosure, I got admitted to UVA and Northeastern as well. And in choosing my program, first of all, look at the Instagrams. Architecture schools curate their Instagrams quite a bit. So if you want to see the work you're going to produce, look at the Instagrams. And if that interests you, that's a good first sign. And like Ben said, look at faculty members that you might be interested in. Working with, studying with, studio professors teach courses outside of studio, sometimes. So look through course options, all of that. I think feeds into it quite a bit. Um, and then I'd also say recommendations for applications. Um, I think uh, an application in your portfolio is a design exercise within itself. It's about organization and how you present your ideas. Not as much. I mean, your work is very important. It is. And one thing I'd say about your work is don't include too much text. Let it speak for itself. Let the images speak for itself, but understand that your portfolio, if you do architecture or planning or anything related to design, is a design exercise within itself. So think about the organization that a little bit. And I'm happy to talk to anybody that's thinking about applying soon, because I've sent out a lot of portfolios at this point. So, but as for my liberal arts connection, I think again, working with your hands, sketching, all that. I came away from Holy Cross with a great education in architectural history, that I think really helped me my first year when I was focusing on the digital aspect a lot. Um, I really need to improve in the digital aspect, but I could go into my history courses and some other courses and really rock that out because I'd already had that background. So, if you're thinking about design and worried about being in studio and all that and it being so different from Holy Cross, lean into your strength when you go into that program of, you have all this architectural history behind you, which you'll certainly be in courses for, or urban design or whatever it may be. All those disciplines have some version of their history. Coming out of Holy Cross will certainly have plenty of strength in that. So lean on your strengths. Take studios at Holy Cross that, you work with your hands. Because usually once you get towards a master's program, you're going to be in digital tools a lot. So enjoy it while you have it. And hopefully while you're in school, you can learn how to get back and work with your hands a little bit before you have to go into the digital tools. So that's I hope that answered the questions.
Yeah, that's great. And then that's an option, right? It sounds like you can do that at Penn, that you can still use your hands if you find a way.
Yeah, I think you have to find a way. Um, but certainly some studios, especially early on and for iterations, sketching is certainly part of the culture. Red lines and markups on what you make, which is you and the studio professor or whatever class you're in that you're designing for, may tweak some of your design. That's also a place to use your hands and sketch out what you need. So when you have, quick changes that you want to make, having that conceptual foundation of being able to sketch something that somebody can understand really helps communicate. And that's a critical skill in practice and in education, in my educational career so far. So, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Chris, can I ask you the same set of questions?
Yeah, I think I think Leslie articulated it really well, where if you're coming from Holy Cross, your interests aren't just one singular thing, you don't learn in one specific way. I think no matter what, that type of willingness to expand beyond just one mode of thinking is going to help you, especially in planning. I think from everything that I've learned and everything that I've done in this degree, I think it's a Northeastern specifically is a very versatile degree. We have to take a statistics coding class. We have to take an econ course. We have to take a law course. So I think, and then everything else is structured like just planning and like urban design generally. But those are common core requirement courses. And I think that's something just in general, when you're applying to a planning program, the architecture programs differ a lot too, but planning programs, there's a really wide array from specific urban design programs versus planning and policy specific course like programs like I'm in. So I think just make sure that you know the actual path you want to go because they can differ kind of on the back end a lot. So if you want to be a specific urban designer, I think that that course may not be the Northeastern path versus Northeastern's is more, okay, I want to sort of combine everything and be a versatile planner and designer. I think that's sort of the path that Northeastern's provides you. So there are a lot of different paths within planning, and I think Holy Cross prepares you super well for that. Just kind of when you're applying to the programs, you may find that the specifics of them and the course requirements differ a ton. So just that, and also Ben's advice to look at the faculty. Definitely look at the faculty, look at what research they've done, and that really will guide you because some programs may focus really heavily in environmental and resilience planning versus some may focus really heavily in like structural and as an infrastructure and like transportation planning. So just be careful with those types of things too, or like housing in general.
Super. Well, I realize we're like already down to the last 5 minutes. So I wanted to, kind of thoughtful of our time, just maybe we should open it up to our audience and see if there are questions that we could take at this point for, I mean, um, the panel has given us all sorts of amazing food for thought. And I wonder if anyone in our audience would like to ask a question. I'm sure anyone here would be willing to take, your questions. Do we have a Ben? Do you know, is this how this work? Can they submit questions on the chat? Is that the best way?
Yeah, so folks can feel free to either raise your hand or jump in or put your question in the chat.
I have a question for Chris.
Yeah.
So did you take the GIS course here, when you were doing undergrad? And then also, like how do urban planning careers compare, whether you have like a master's or not? Because I know an urban planner who didn't get his master's, but he still like got into it. I think he might have gotten his master's later, but just yeah, how careers work, whether you
Yeah.
have.
I think with architecture, it's obviously you need to get the MArch, but with so I did take the GIS class, and I think understanding geospatial data and how that connects to Excel, and there's even ways to like overlay AutoCAD drawings onto geospatial technology, and then I geocode them. So that's also kind of an important thing that we do. But so those are kind of some hard skills that might be useful if you're looking to get into planning. But yeah, so I think that there's definitely a lot of lanes you can kind of go to get into planning, project management, urban design probably needs more of a master's degree. But if you're getting into sort of, public government and public planning, I think like for a state DOT or for a city government or something like that, yeah, there are certainly modes that you can get into that via just an undergraduate degree that has some level of association with those. But I think for coming out of Holy Cross with the liberal arts degree, I think it helps to reinforce what you're trying to accomplish with that master's. So I think, it's certainly nice to have, but I think there's also ways that you can sort of get into the field in a pretty base level way and then work your way up as well. So definitely multiple ways to go about it. Especially having worked with a lot of the planners that I do at MassDOT, there's people that come from, road construction, there's people that come from the military, there's people that come from, all sorts of different backgrounds, economic backgrounds, just business in general. And I think that all comes sort of to a head. And that's why, planning needs all those different types of opinions and different minds.
Chris, can you say just one? I know maybe other hands have come up, but in the meantime, I just want to ask if you like about the internship that you're, I mean, the work that you're doing now. I mean, did that initiate as an internship or was that
Yeah,
just,
so I initially actually didn't even apply through it Northeastern, which a lot of people do. I just applied on my own through LinkedIn, so that worked out for me pretty well. And I initially got hired in the highway department, but then I got transitioned over to the office of transportation planning because just a whole bunch of things happened. But long story short, I it initially started as an internship, and they decided that they wanted to try to keep me on through the full length of my last semester or last course year. So I'm gonna be on until I graduate. So that's kind of how it went there.
super? And I see that Leslie just put in the chat the GSD, the Career Discovery Program, which is at Harvard, the GSD Career Discovery Program, which I think also, Ben, didn't you do that as well? Yes. And I can't remember, Hunter, did you do it? Yes. I'm like,
Oh, look at this.
it's
Oh,
like,
I did it such a long time ago. I did it my summer before my junior year. So, okay, well, they can attest to it. I was just like, I don't even know if it's still operating. It looks like it is. But I personally, I don't know if you guys would agree. I had a great time. It expanded my brain in more ways than one. So highly recommend that.
I think, I mean, it seems like generally people have found that's a really, really wonderful way. Also, just in terms of developing a portfolio, if you're applying for architecture school, that's a really wonderful way to do that, to make a suddenly a kind of quantum leap
Yep.
into the studio experience. Also, I would say it's a really good way to know if you like don't want to become an architect. I'd just like say that too, because it's
Oh
like that
yeah.
is the intensive experience, right?
Very intense. I assume it's still very intense today. It was quite a shock, but if you love it, you're gonna have a lot of shocks. If you
And
then
you'll
go to
thrive.
school and then you start working. So it's just this your first of many kind of baptism by fire
There
is
you
what I
go.
think.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's exactly right. Um, Here, there's some questions coming up. Oh, repeat the name of the program would be it's the GSD, which means Graduate School of Design at Harvard. And they have a program that you can just look up called the Career Discovery. I think Leslie put it in the chat.
I'll put the Instagram.
Oh,
There we go.
perfect. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I think it was Design Discovery when I went,
Design
but
Discovery,
I think it's now Career
Career
Discovery.
Discovery.
I
Anyway,
think they
you'll
changed the name.
It's the
So
summer program. It's a 4-week intensive program, I think. So there's some questions about internships. Did any of you not find an off-campus internship before you graduated? And what did you do to make up for that? Did any of you have that experience of not having an internship and that finding a way, like how you could get around not having an internship?
I actually worked an unpaid internship during my fall senior year while I was applying. It was not traditional in the way of it was researching historical areas for architectural buildings and using different databases. But the thing is, it was related to architecture, so it was a nice thing to have on my resume going in that I had at least worked a job related in the architecture field. It's hard these days to enter architecture firms without like a solid accredited degree sometimes. Sometimes you know somebody and sometimes you don't know anybody. It's a little hard to gain entry before you get into kind of a more accredited program. I'd say don't be afraid to put a portfolio together and be honest with the firm or practice that you're applying to and say, hey, I'm looking for experience. I'm happy to help out in any way. Um, but I would say that's a little bit of an uphill battle because I certainly tried. I think I applied to like 15 different firms junior year through senior year, and it's just a little bit of a uphill battle before you get into like a master's degree.
I agree. I mean, I convinced someone out of Holy Cross to hire me, but they had a liberal arts background. So if you could do some Googles, they went to Harvard after they had a very similar background to mine. So that's probably why they understood the merit. So that could be a quick Google filter if you found firms that also were led by people with liberal arts background. I have in my past since then scored some interviews that way. My other suggestion as a small business owner is you'd probably have a better chance finding a one or two person firm practitioner that's overworked that could use some help. But keep your expectations low. I think one thing I have found is that young students or even architects, they think when they get that job or internship, they're going to be like designing a house. What you really need to understand and also convey to them that you understand is that you just want to be in the room. You want to learn from what they're doing. You might be just photoshopping marketing materials for them, but that's going to be incredibly helpful. Along the way, though, and you should ask them if they're not doing this, you should be on calls, just listening to how everything's coming together. So much of what I did in my first few jobs was like, yes, I was drafting and doing like these very kind of like, this is your task, but I was listening and like absorbing everything that was coming around that was like swirling around me. And when the time is right, would try to kind of get in there and see if I could help. But if you can pitch yourself that way as just a very passionate, curious person who's just here to help and like be a sponge, I think you're going to have actually a hard time finding someone who doesn't even have a liberal arts background, not understanding and appreciating that.
Mhm. That's great. No, I think that's wonderful. And I see that Ben has put in the chat about coming into the Career Center. To if you're interested in trying to find network, right, sort of work on your network. I mean, again, the alumni network is amazing. And that might complement an internship search. And then also that there's a Crusader internship fund that's providing a stipend for summer internships that are unpaid. I don't know, Hunter, were you able to take advantage of that? No, this was like before. Maybe that wasn't they didn't have that option. I don't know, but now there's some funding available, so you can.
I think there was that option. It was just I was also studying at the same time. So I worked during the semester and it was remote. So it was just kind of like another course at that point.
Okay.
But I definitely think those resources were available. I just did not take advantage of them. So
So this is good. This is like we should have had this talk then. But anyway, so these are super, super suggestions. And I don't know, just any closing thoughts from any of you? I know that, time is running out, but I wanted to just give you the chance to, if you had any sort of parting advice or thoughts to give to any of the students or, people who are kind of listening to us now. This is great. Leslie's giving all sorts of great
I already
advice.
give one. Mine is just like, if you love it, like just go, go, go. Like I'm like a very optimistic, stubborn person, and that has served me very well. If you can hold on to that spirit, and it's not that I don't have low days where I'm like, I'm gonna give this all up. This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever engaged. Why did I start my own firm? I do have those days, but I come back to, no, I love it. And I really do believe that if you love something and you keep going, like it'll happen. And I learned that at Holy Cross, like whether it was my professors or just meeting people through Holy Cross or just being curious and asking people about how they got where they did. People I admire tend to be kind of stubbornly curious people. So that's my advice.
That seems like it could kind of, count for a lot of the people at the school. So that's good. That's good news. Thank you. Others, other reflections or thoughts, anyone, Chris or Hunter or Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I just say like shoot for the moon, but when you hit the stars, like it's so much better. Like the best moments that you'll have and the most interesting things you'll come across will happen when you least expect them. So don't put too much pressure to be A or B or C. Like it's okay if you like swirl around a little bit. And also just for the networking process, like good thing that I like to do is like LinkedIn is probably my favorite social media platform. So spend time on it, like make networks, comment on your friends' posts. Like it's never too early to start building a network. So
Super. Got
yeah,
you.
I'd say you know, be aware of like kind of what you want to do career trajectory wise, especially with architecture. If you want to become a licensed architect, you do have to do a master's degree. So I think about that. But in terms of networking, the first internship I got, I was very honest about I had no experience in the office, and they were willing to take me because I was very open to do whatever they needed that summer. And it turned out to be one of the best learning experiences possible. So, the power of being open to getting involved in any way possible really, I think extends far.
Great. Thank you. Chris, can we?
Yeah, I would just say within planning, there's a lot of ways you can go. Stick to your interests. I think if you can cater every single thing that you do possible to what you're interested in, for me, that's transportation planning. I think you can come out of it with, you can be really, really, really knowledgeable about that specific thing and come out and really, have a good case to get a job in that field. So just within a field, try to figure out what you like to do early on and try to just go, go, go into that specific thing.
Well, I'd have the like not fun task of actually asking us, like the bringing this to a close because it's been so amazing hearing from all of you and like really inspiring. I'm just like reading, these, it's like this is really just, in the chat, there's just like amazing things going on. You guys are so supportive and enthusiastic. And I think the idea of taking advantage of those resources in the community that we have is really important and kind of learning from each other. Again, which is something I hope that you've learned at the college. So thank you all, especially our panelists, but to all of our audience as well for joining us tonight. Really grateful to have you all here and to be part of this community. And, let's stay in touch. Please do. Like I think all of our panelists would be willing to, reach to speak with anyone. If you have more questions to follow up with them, they said they would be willing to share their emails. So, please keep, if questions come up that you'd like to follow up with each of them, I think they would be glad to speak to you. And I'm also happy to speak with anyone as well. And of course, Ben at the Career Center, who has all sorts of resources that we can draw on. So thank you again. And hope to see you all soon in person. So appreciate it. Thank you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, David. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you all. This was great. Have a great night, all. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.